We're talking about logarithms and logarithmic functions, and we want to graph and translate logarithmic functions. Sketch the graph of y equals log base 1/3 of the quantity x minus 3, then state the domain and range of the function. So the first thing we want to do is we want to write this in exponential form. So we have our base here is 1/3, so that would be the same thing that we would have for the exponential form. And then this is the exponent, so 1/3 raised to the y power, and then that is going to be equal to x minus 3. Well, in order to get x by itself, we have to add 3 to both sides, and then we get 1/3 raised to the y power plus 3 is equal to x. And we want to do the same thing again because it's going to be a little bit easier to substitute y values in to figure out what x. So we can pick the value of -1. So 1/3 of -1 plus 3. And what is that going to be equal to? So -1, or 1/3 to the -1 power, negative flips it, so it becomes 3. 3 plus 3 is equal to 6. Then we can check 0. So 1/3 to the 0 power plus 3. Anything to the 0 power is 1. 1 plus 3 is equal to 4. And we'll try one more. Try to the first power. 1/3 to the first power plus 3. So 1/3 plus 3. Another way that we can think of 3 is 9/3. So 1/3 plus 9/3, that's going to be equal to 10/3. So we had the point 0, 4, and we had the point 1, and then we got 10/3. So we can plot those points. So 6, -1, so a little bit past off our graph there, -1, which is down here. 4, 0. So we go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 0. And then we have 10/3, which is a little bit above 3. So 1, 2, 3, and a little more. 10/3, 1. And actually, so that'll be enough points to graph because we won't be able to get any real closer to our asymptote. And this spot right here, this -3, actually tells us what our asymptote is going to be. So that tells us that the x is backwards because inside the function there. So that actually tells us that our asymptote is going to be at x equals 3. And so we can graph that line there for our asymptote. So we'll use a vertical line. And then we can sketch the graph that goes through there. And so it's going to start really high, and then it's going to come down. And then we're going to go through and that's what our function is going to look like. And now we can talk about the domain and range. The domain in this case is going to start at 3, not included, so we use a parenthesis, and it's going to go to positive infinity. The range is going to be all real numbers, or we can go from -infinity to positive infinity. The asymptote is going to be x equals 3, that vertical line there. And our y-intercept, in this case, we don't have one, so we can't graph it. So we can take a look at the graph. And we have the log of 0.333 because we couldn't type in 1/3 there. So that's an estimation. And we can see that we have the asymptote at x equals 3. And then we have those points. And then we have the point here of 6, -1, 4, 0.